Welcome to Bariatric Business Accelerator, the podcast created for busy weight loss practitioners and their teams who want to systematize, simplify, and accelerate the growth of their new or existing weight loss practice. I'm your host, Carol Clark, and today we are talking about what to do when tension is running high in your practice. And let's face it, tensions do run high at times. Of course, you may have a low number of team members because some people have called out, so you're not fully staffed. You might have a full waiting room of patients who are all staring at you, waiting to go back and see the physician because clinic is behind for one reason or another. It could be somebody who's had something happen at home and they come into the practice and they just have a lot of tension that is existing. It could be somebody who's raised their voice or somebody who took a comment perhaps not well, or maybe someone says a comment that really was not appropriate. So tensions can run high anytime you have human beings who are working together, living together, interacting together. So it's going to happen at times. We want to keep that at bay because if we have tensions running high all the time or frequently, it will cause a lot of negative side effects from that. The first thing is we always think about our patients, but they can tell when your practice has a lot of tension. It's not a pleasant feeling. You can also have things fester so that it gets to the point where your team doesn't want to come to work, or maybe you aren't enjoying coming to work because it's happening every single day. If you don't address it, it's going to continue and it can fester and become even larger. You can then see quiet quitting occurring where people they decide, I just don't want to work in this sort of environment. And so they leave and you end up with a high turnover. Tensions can turn into something that is a much bigger problem that we want to avoid. So I always say that when you sense tension, you need to recognize it, number one, and you need to recognize it and then you need to call it out. Now, at the time the tension is occurring, do you need to call it out right then? It depends. If it's something that's getting out of hand, absolutely. You need to pull people aside, get that dissipated, and set expectations and get everyone back to work. But there are times when it's just kind of something that's happening on and off and you're noticing it, but it's not really adversely affecting overall day-to-day operations. In that case, though, you do still need to recognize it and you need to call it out. And it's oftentimes just a quick question. I noticed that you've been a bit more stressed at work and I feel as if that is something that is bothering you. Can you share with me what's going on? Is there some way that I can help? How can I best support you? That's one way to call it out, and always do that in private. I get to work with a lot of different teams. As you know, I'm in the trenches, and fortunately for us, our team's been together for a really long time. I've been managing practices for over 20 years, and some of the team members that are with us here have been with us for about that same period of time. We've grown up together. We know each other. We just have this great working relationship. Is every day peachy keen? No, there's always times when something's going to be going on in your personal life or something like that, but we adapt to it. Everyone maturely handles it, and I know I'm very blessed in that way. I get to work with a lot of different teams. Many function very much the same way, and then there's other ones where I can come in and there is this behavior that's tolerated because it's always been tolerated. And so sometimes it's a matter of calling that out, making sure that you do identify that we cannot have certain behaviors occurring in the practice. If you have people who are raising their voice, treating others unkindly, or, ganging up some against others, we've got to set expectations and standards. So the first thing, as I mentioned, is recognizing it, calling it out either at the time, hopefully in private. If it's in just a meeting amongst your team, you've got to address it. If it's in front of patients and in a big group, and it's just a couple people, you may need to pull them aside. That would be more appropriate for that, but you've got to call it out. And you need to find out what the root cause is. Sometimes it's just something, like I said, going on at home, and it's a one-off behavior. If it's something that recurs a lot, then we need to address the behavior, but you need to figure out what the root cause is for that. Everyone is brought up differently. Everyone's trained differently. We all come from different backgrounds where certain behavior may be tolerated that perhaps is not appropriate in the workplace. And so we've got to address those different aspects and always take the high road with that. but find out the root cause. Recognize the feelings and perceptions that people have. To some people, that just might be normal behavior, and they don't recognize that it's uncomfortable for other people, or it creates negative undertones, or it's adversely affecting patient care. We need to recognize their opinions and their perceptions, help them work through it if it's a situation that is maybe something that needs to be worked through between two people, or something that we need to help them. We're always helping, there's lots of different things that could be going on with that person. So we want to help them work through it, set expectations moving forward, what will be tolerated, what won't be tolerated, and what the consequences are for such behavior, and then monitor for setbacks. Oftentimes you'll have people, they're really trying, and they will have really good days, good weeks, and all of a sudden it will come, those behaviors will creep back in. So we want to monitor for that. But bottom line, if you've got tension running high in your practice, we need to, number one, like I mentioned, recognize it, call it out, figure out what the root cause is for such tension, recognize their feelings and their perceptions, and then help them work through it, help the group work through it if it's a group issue, and then set expectations moving forward along with the what will happen if the expectations are not met. And it also goes back to your values of what you do tolerate and what you don't tolerate, what you value at work. Do you value honesty? Do you value team members working together? Do you value them bringing a solution to problems? Do you value just that open communication? Letting them know that and setting the expectation from the top down and is really a great way to help manage that. And then monitor as you go along for any setbacks. Make sure you follow through on any of the ramifications or the what's going to happen if the behavior occurs again. That's something that's not to be tolerated, and go from there. But the bottom line is, don't just shove it under the rug or ignore it, or just feel just grateful to have, just feel grateful that you have people there, but you're just going to let this go because you're not comfortable addressing it, or you don't know that how best to address it. We need to make sure that you follow proper HR policies, but addressing it and working through it is so much better than just ignoring it and letting it degrade at the overall working relationships in your practice and causing a higher amount of turnover and lower patient satisfaction. So that is my viewpoint for today. And I just know that I've seen a little bit higher tension right now. It's tough times out there. And so working through that is really important. Like I said, I get to work with lots of different teams and many different types of practices. And I actually love seeing that resolution take place and seeing people, really able to manage that. This is a skill set that ends up serving you well throughout your life, and your personal life and your work life. So I hope that's been helpful. If you find that you have a little bit of chippiness going on in your office, if you're not a member of Bariatric Business Accelerator, these are the things that we talk through at our monthly meetings. And then for some groups, I work with much closer and at a different level, where I actually work weekly with their teams. But this is something that can be manageable, should be managed, and it will make all the difference in terms of the enjoyment in your practice for you, your team, and your patients. So reach out to me if I can be of help in any way. Carol, Karol, at weightlosspracticebuilder.com. And I look forward to our next conversation, or you joining Bariatric Business Accelerator, or just seeing you on the next podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and share it with anyone else that could find this helpful. In the meantime, take care.